Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Clash Royale. How are you guys doing? Today I have a treat for you guys. It's the #1 player from the end of last season. It's Lciop from China. He was the second place finisher, qualified for CCGS Worlds Finals in London. He wasn't able to attend because of visa issues. Same thing for Legend. Same thing for Detective Heka, who was going to be chosen to replace Legend initially. It was a mess anyway in China, in Asia, CCGS, especially for the invitationals, but that's another story for another day. Either way, I would have loved to see Lciop in the at London because I think he could have been a finalist. Same thing with Little Chen, by the way. Little Chen and Lciop, the two best players in China in wins. My New England accent there, W-I-N-D-S, probably the three best players in China. Anyway, it would have been nice to see Little Chen and Lciop in the competition, however, they weren't able to go. Anyway, you'll be seeing his gameplay. Finished #1 on ladder last season, and he also is an incredibly good player at tournament level standard. He's a double threat, and not a lot of players in the world can say that. Me personally, I would rank him in my top 10, certainly in the world, maybe even top 5. So anyway, let's get to the point of the video today, guys. I want to talk a little bit about Royal Ghost. I'm going to give my thoughts on Royal Ghost being OP and what we should do about him. I'm going to qualify that before I give my thoughts, and then I'm going to transition the conversation into strategy, Supercell strategy when releasing a new card, especially legendary cards, and how maybe, in the opinion of yours truly, maybe it should change just a hair. So let's start out by talking about the Royal Ghost. I put out a video the day of the challenge saying he was going to be OP. He was going to be game-breaking strength, similar to Night Witch. Obviously, she cost 1 more elixir, provided a little bit more value, maybe a lot more value initially. She was incredible. Talk about game-breaking when she was released with the 4 bats, an immediate bat spawn. Wow, that was crazy. But I'll tell you what, guys. Royal Ghost, he might not necessarily feel as strong as the Night Witch was when she was released, but I would make the case that he is right there. The reason being is because he just has so much value packed into 3 elixir. 3 elixir is like that magic number, and you can see it's funny, the night usage rate has gone way down since the Royal Ghost has been introduced to the game. He's totally boxed out the night, because if you have the choice between a Knight and the choice between a Royal Ghost, of course you're going to use the Royal Ghost if the card levels are there, meaning if you have a max Royal Ghost, or on challenges tournament level standard if you have Royal Ghost unlocked. Now the quick qualifier, like I said, is that right now the people using Royal Ghost, because he's technically still not even released in the game, well, odds are they're probably a little bit above average because they were able to beat the Royal Ghost challenge. Okay, and there's a lot of casual players who will probably bring down that win percentage. And by the way, check out the background right now, guys. It's pretty telling that like every single one of the top win percentage decks right now at tournament level standard, besides maybe a couple, have the Royal Ghost in it. That looks a lot reminiscent to the situation of the Night Witch when she was introduced. So you get a lot of value. I'm not going to go on and on about the value of the Royal Ghost. You guys already know it, most likely. He has a splash damage, he has the invisibility, he has the high DPS, he has the high hit points, and he turns back invisible after he's taken care of all the troops around him. He's back invisible again, and he can get all the way to the Princess Tower, the King Tower, whatever, with like 1 HP left. Man, that's a lot of value. That's a lot of value for 3 elixir, guys. You know, wow, and look at this finish here, by the way, with 7 seconds left in the match. Man, pulls off that victory there. By the way, huge shout out to GeekGod799, my YouTube sponsor of the day. Thank you very much, sir. All right, so we've given the qualifier. We've talked about his value. It's pretty inherent. Now let's talk about how to nerf him. So I don't love super big nerfs to new cards that are strong, because man, does it suck when you upgrade a card, when you invest in upgrading a card, and then they nerf it hard. Man, that makes nobody happy, right? I mean, I guess it makes the people who didn't invest in unlocking or upgrading him happy, but other than that, it's a lot of mad people out there, and we don't want that. So I advocate a very small nerf. I'm interested to hear what you guys say. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think he needs more of a nerf? Because this is a really small one. But this is where I would start if I was Supercell. I would go ahead on the next round of balance changes, which honestly might be towards the end of this month, January, or maybe early February. I was looking at the balance changes from last year, 2017 and 2016, for my predictions video, and man, there's a lot of balance changes, so I would suspect them in the next 30 days or so. Anyway, I do think that he should be nerfed so that once he's visible, he's always visible. There's no going back to being invisible again. So I think that that's a small enough nerf where it's not going to piss everybody off who's already invested in unlocking or upgrading him. However, you know, I think that it's just kind of crazy how so many times a Royal Ghost with, like, you know, 30 HP left still gets whatever, hundreds of damage off the tower because he's able to turn back invisible again. So that would be the very slight nerf that I would give him. Now, I know a lot of you guys are going to comment that you want to go ahead and make him 4 elixir and keep him the same. With all due respect, because maybe that could work. But I think at 4 elixir, I mean, 1 elixir is a big, big, big nerf in my opinion. I think that might be overkill. I'm not saying I'm right here, I might be wrong, because I've seen a lot of comments saying this 4 elixir and he's fine. But 4 elixir, I don't know. I'd rather just nerf the invisibility for now, and then wait and see. I think I would take the very cautious approach to this, if I was Supercell. So that's how I would handle it. Now, let's talk, this is the bigger point of this episode, right? Let's talk a little bit about the philosophy of adding cards to the game and making them strong versus making them weak. Or making them average. Obviously, you want to introduce a card to the game and have it, boom, magically balanced. Now, that's a very, very big challenge. I wouldn't expect that anybody could do that in a game of 81 cards to, you know, introduce one card that is 100% perfectly balanced. However, you want to get to where the hunter is, right? You want to make a card that's good for its rarity, and, you know, you don't need an immediate nerf or buff. However, I would always err on the side of making a card a little bit less strong. Now, that's kind of counterintuitive to what I've heard from Supercell in the past. I've heard from Supercell themselves, the developers. They have a great game designer, by the way, Stefan, and he's amazing. And I remember at a Q&A that he did, that he said specifically, he was doing a developer talk. If I can find it, I'll link it for you guys in the description. It's very entertaining. It's like an hour long, but it's great. I ate it up. So he said that when he introduces a new card to the game, he wants it to feel powerful and alluring, not so we spend all our money on it, but he wants these cards, it just makes sense, right? I mean, obviously for money too, but when you introduce a new card to your game that you're so passionate about, that you love, you want it to be enticing. You don't want it to be Zappies, right? Where you're just like, okay, that sucks, I don't care about it, I'm not even gonna request it. So what I would do is I would just, you know, wherever you feel comfortable releasing a card, I would just err a little bit on the side of underwhelming. Let me give you an example. The cannon cart. I think the cannon cart is a great example. When the cannon cart was introduced, he was very underwhelming, not used that much. Same thing for flying machine, but now the flying machine and the cannon cart, I feel they both found their niche in the game. I think that they're both solid cards. You see Flying Machine in the best Golem deck out there in the game right now. You guys might have seen it at #1 in the win percentage. I'll be doing a video on that, by the way, tomorrow with Music Master, or Thursday. And at the same time, you know, they were able to buff these cards. You know, they were able to buff the cannon cart and the flying machine so that they have a nice, comfortable spot in the meta without making people, you know, invest heavily on them first. You know, it's like, okay, we'll give it a buff, we'll give it a small buff, we'll give it another small buff, and now you're slowly making believers out of us, right? I think that for the user experience, for the player experience, that's the most advantageous way to have a new card introduced. Like, okay, I like this card. I think people liked Cannon Cart when it was introduced to the game. It's a unique, interesting card. However, it was just underwhelming. But when you buff it slightly and slightly, the usage rate and the win rates go up, and now it's one of the best cards in the game. Same thing with Skeleton Barrel. Skeleton Barrel was introduced without any death damage, and it wasn't used too much. Now Skeleton Barrel's everywhere, and no one's really complaining about it too much, right? It's because they don't feel ripped off in the process, right? They feel like it was a fair move to buff it. I really don't see a lot of people, you know, complaining and calling for a skeleton barrel nerf. So I guess that's how I would prefer things, you know? Go the route of the flying machine, the cannon cart, and in the skeleton barrel. And by the way, the skeleton barrel, personally, I think it's one of the coolest cards introduced to the game in quite a while. Even the Royal Ghost is a cool card, but I think people are going to start hating on him just as much as the other RG, right? RG. Either way you look at it, it's not a popular card. So guys, that's going to do it for today's video. I'm not going to overextend my thoughts on this, but I just wanted to kind of speak to the power of new cards, in particular the Royal Ghost, because a lot of you guys ask me about it in the comments. Seems to be a very popular topic that's rising in the amount of frequency I see you guys asking about my thoughts on it. So I want to hear from you guys. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think of new cards? Should they be overwhelming, underwhelming? What do you think? Well, let me know in the comments below, guys. Huge shout out to Bren Chong, my YouTube partner. Check out his information in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, take care, guys.